Welcome to HugNation. I am Halcyon, and it is an honor to share this moment with you. Thank you for being here. Today's topic is about gluten. It's not just about gluten, but gluten is what prompted this topic and this idea. Now, a little backstory. My beloved has been dealing with a gluten sensitivity for many months now. Before she discovered that the removal of gluten was beneficial, she had months of unknown illnesses and doctor's visits and emergency rooms and panic attacks and ambulances because something was wrong. And these symptoms in the abdomen and the numbness of limbs and all sorts of just really scary things. And the doctors kept saying, nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with you. Maybe you should see a psychiatrist. And after sharing the story with people every once in a while, someone said, have you looked into what celiac disease is? And celiac disease is the very intense version of gluten challenges. And that's when you have even a tiny trace of gluten, your autoimmune system just freaks. And that is a very official illness. And there seems to be no controversy about that. But there is a huge number of people who, when they remove gluten from their diet, notice dramatic changes. Sometimes it's people they just feel better. Sometimes it's people that have had these illnesses that they can't explain, can't diagnose, no one knows why, and suddenly they stop or greatly minimize. And that's what happened with Delicious. Now, it has gotten really popular lately. They say that something like a third of the people in the US right now, if polled, say they are trying to reduce their gluten. Now, they say 1 in 141 people has celiac disease. So clearly more people are trying to reduce their gluten than are diagnosed as problems with gluten. And in response to this fad, some could argue that maybe causing this fad is a food industry that is absolutely working to fill the niche. Now, so there's tons of gluten-free options. I went to this food trade show a couple months ago, and half of the things there were gluten-free, with big letters, just trying to draw this is how you sell something right now. Our new water product is gluten-free. Doesn't have electrolytes, but it doesn't have gluten either. And so the thing about these gluten foods is they're often very expensive. $1 billion plus industry is going into these gluten-free foods. And so that's part of the equation. Anytime a lot of money gets put into an issue, things get confusing. We see that with the pharmaceutical industry or with agriculture or with anything. Once there is money to be made on either side of a cause, then there are people on either side of the cause that will argue for it. Another challenge in this, if you create an organization to fight a problem, it no longer has incentive to stop that problem. That's a side topic and maybe another HugNation for another day. Okay, so the thing about removing gluten is that it means that you basically have to eat. It sucks. There's no pizza, there's no breads, no wheat. There's everything yummy, pretty much. So when some people say that, it's a fad, people are just kind of getting on this fad diet, I'm like, why would anyone get on this fad diet? It sucks. That being said, so as it's become trendy, there has been a voice or a tide of opinion that has been kind of dismissive and angry and judgmental towards people who are making an effort to be gluten-free. Some of this is because anytime people are vocal about their choices with their diet, some people are overly pushy. If somebody goes vegetarian or vegan, the reputation of a vegan is that they will try to push it on you. There's a joke like, how can you tell if someone's a vegan? Answer, don't worry, they'll tell you. And so some people, as they embrace gluten, they say, oh my gosh, it's helped me so much, you have to do this, you have to do this. And that is a legit challenge to this whole scenario. But what's also happened in this scenario, where you've got this kind of backlash against the fad, you also have some studies, a recent study coming out saying that they can't prove that there's such a thing as gluten insensitivity or sensitivity or intolerance. Celiac disease is real, and there's like these intense tests where they can do a biopsy of you, go in with it and take a piece of you out and test and see if you have celiac disease, but they haven't been able to actually say, oh, this person has a intolerance of gluten. And when we do these blind double tests, here we show that if we remove gluten from their diet, they get better, or if we add gluten, they get worse. The study that's been going around right now, they took I think 35 people who all said they were gluten intolerant, and they could not prove that the removal of, if they told people they were removing gluten from the diet, it was just as effective as if they actually did. So the conclusion that people are drawing, and the kind of tone of a lot of these articles, is saying it's a fraud, it's a scam, and people are basically inventing their illnesses, that there's no such thing. And that is a troublesome place to be. Because imagine you're someone who has had this unknown illness, your doctors say you're crazy, you finally find something that makes you feel better. And it's hard, you gotta make special, eat, you can't go out as much, and you gotta cook for yourself, and you gotta read ingredients all the time. But you know what, it's totally worth it, because you don't have this terrible feeling all the time. And then the cultural kind of status quo starts to say that you don't have a real illness. And so people kind of judge you and roll their eyes at you when you ask for things gluten-free. I've heard it a ton from people who work in restaurants. They just are so sick of people asking for gluten-free, and they never believe anybody. And so it's a common thing for people to feel like they have to defend themselves. They have to, almost like, oh, I've been diagnosed, I have celiac. It's like, oh, I'm not just jumping on the bandwagon. And it's different from some other scenarios. One of the arguments is like, it's pseudoscience. We have to do what we can to eradicate the pseudoscience. There's no science that says that this is real. Well, some pseudoscience is challenging for the culture. Like if you base your vaccination choices on pseudoscience, that has an impact on everyone. If you choose your dietary choices on whatever you want, pseudoscience will say, let's say you read an article and it convinced you, fine. That's between you and whatever the restaurant wants to charge you for making that. And so I posted something yesterday saying like, hey, can we just maybe show a little bit more compassion towards people who have been suffering and now feel better? One of the thoughts is that it is a massive case of nocebo effect, the opposite of a placebo effect. In which case, that kind of freaks me out. Like, what has caused these? It'd be one thing if people on a whim decided to remove gluten and then they started feeling better. They're like, wow, maybe that's placebo. But The situation as I understand it from all these kind of anecdotal stories, granted they're anecdotal, but of course they're anecdotal because when you go to the doctor they say you're crazy. There is nobody collecting these people. These people, there's all these symptoms that go away when you stop eating gluten. You can, the thread on my Facebook page it's unbelievable how many people just in my network of friends told their story. And these weren't people that were like, I mean, maybe it's a placebo effect, but the circumstances of all these stories I just don't see it. Now, from looking at these science studies and from hearing everything, do I think that maybe there's more to the story than we know? Yes. Do I think that maybe there's some new illness that potentially is related in some way to gluten, or there's another FODMAPs, which is some acronym of something that is often related to gluten, or carbohydrates, or something in the behavior of removing gluten is having these positive effects on people who are suffering from something that we yet do not understand? Probably, but in the meantime, can't we keep pushing the science to figure out what the true cause is while we recognize that removing gluten helps a lot of people? I mean, it seems so. What's the joy in judging someone who's found something that works for them? I know it's very common in our culture, like we see it all the time with religion. Somebody they believe, they have a set of beliefs that makes them happy. I'm not talking about somebody who goes out and protests gays and wants to run the crusades against you. I'm saying someone who has a faith in a personal savior or whatever. And we feel many people feel very drawn and like it's their responsibility to say, what you believe isn't true. I need to knock it out of your hands. I need to make sure you don't believe it. It's like, well, granted, I was very impacted by Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut when I was in junior high, where he has a fake religion called Backlash, where the main tenet is live by the FOMA that brings you peace and happiness. And FOMA is translated to lies. Live by whatever beliefs you need to make you peaceful and happy. So I have no problem with that. So the thing what I guess gets it really muddy here is that in the thread, while all these people are sharing their scenarios, a bunch of other people are sharing their conclusions, which is GMOs and pesticides and Monsanto and bees are dying, and therefore it's pretty obvious that something is happening with gluten intolerance, and that is why all these people are sick. And in that situation, I gotta agree with the people in the science side saying like, no, that's too far. I think saying like, hey, a lot has changed in our food supply in recent years, and so we need to open up the scope of what we're studying and the length we're studying it, and try to find different types of causation. But to draw the line and say, I don't know what a chemtrail is, the weather's changing, chemtrails change the weather. That's how you make divisions between science and quackery. And the same is a danger here, I think, if you say, oh yeah, well, Monsanto is corrupt, therefore gluten is a result of a corrupt food system and pesticides and plastics breaking down. Maybe. I do believe there are forces at hand that we don't understand. Cancer happens for reasons we don't understand. Rates change, diets, we don't understand. And even the things we do understand, in a couple years we understand differently. I grew up thinking that steak and pizza and pasta was what you ate if you wanted to eat healthy. And then we found out, no, you can't eat that stuff. And then someone said, oh yes, you gotta eat that stuff. Oh no, don't eat that stuff. And I was like, who do you ask? Everyone's got something different. So I guess when it comes down to like my where I put my values and my trust. There's my personal experience at the very top. If I start jogging and I feel better, and then somebody says, actually, there are studies that show that jogging will not extend your life. Am I going to stop jogging? No, that would be stupid. There's a great Robin Williams tape that my parents used to play on our road trips, and he's doing this crazy improv where there's the city's burning and he comes inside and goes, "Papa, Papa, you must run! The fires are coming! The city is burning!" And the dad says, "No, son, look at the news." Which had become kind of like a ongoing joke in our house, like, "Nothing's wrong, look at the news." Or often the opposite's true. "Nothing's right, look at the news." But something is very wrong when you trust a voice outside yourself over your own voice. That statement right there is a topic for a whole nother HugNation, trusting a voice outside you over a voice inside you, because of this. It's also, that needs to be hedged with the understanding that your brain is flawed and not a perfect instrument, and it does fill in the gaps between things, and it does make huge mistakes, and it can be tricked, and it does the best it can with information, but is quite flawed when it comes to remembering things and knowing what's best and all the things. Stumbling on Happiness is a fantastic book that covers all these different studies that show you, whoa, I cannot trust my brain. That being said, I trust my brain on many things, and if something makes me feel better, quite frankly, I embrace the placebo. If you start giving me a pill that makes my skin clear up, I don't want you to tell me it's a placebo. I want you to keep giving me the pill. I understand that everybody falls in that category. But the point is, I value my experience, and then below that, I value experts and science. Actually, take it back. My experience, science, then my gut feelings, like logic, I would say, like those things that people saying, look, pesticides have increased, GMOs, now we have these additional dietary things. That just makes sense. Like, okay, that makes sense, but the brain loves a good conspiracy story. The brain loves to connect dots. That's what it does. That's how we put memories together. So maybe that's true, and if science cannot give us any indication of that, then I'm going to go with science, unless I have a personal experience which trumps it all. And then probably beneath science is like friends, experts, people that I trust, and at the very bottom would be Fox News. So at the end of the day, I kind of feel like, look, I think a lot of people are sick with something that we don't understand. And I think that maybe it does have something to do with new aspects of our food supply. There's so many pieces of the modern environment that are just absolutely new in the scope of humanity. Whether it's plastics, whether it's pesticides, whether it is fertilizers, whether it is things in the air, whether they're just so many variables. All I can do is say, people are suffering. I want to give them as much compassion as possible. And one of the reasons why that's so important to me is because I've had times in my life, in my past, people that were important to me that shared with me illnesses that they couldn't get diagnosed and they couldn't understand. And every once in a while I would think, they're making this up. This is all in their head. And I really struggle with that because on one hand, you want to be there and be supportive and be caring. On the other hand, you don't want to feed something that doesn't need feeding. And it's a real struggle to how can you be compassionate when the reality of a nocebo is that it is a powerful, proven scientific thing. Absolutely, you can think yourself sick. So even if you're having an unknown ailment, spending too much energy studying it and researching it is not good. How many people have gone to WebMD and realized that you've got whatever it is you're reading about? Yeah. So it's trying to find this balance of like unconditional compassion when necessary and critical thought when necessary. Maybe that's a good just like life formula. Unconditional compassion plus critical self-reflection. I like that. Well, in this moment, I will sink into non-critical. I will sink into compassion. Unconditional compassion. And whatever it is that you're feeling right now, if you've got an ailment, if you've got something that is sometimes tugging at you and reminding you of the limitations of your body, your mind, your spirit, know that as a representative of humanity, I feel for you and I want you to feel better. And I hope that you can find a way to use the struggle, the pain, as a source to strengthen other parts of yourself, to recognize what is working in yourself, what countless parts of your body are working perfectly. And then to send healing thoughts because we know that they work. The placebo effect is real. If you think your body can heal something, that makes a difference. So whatever you're feeling right now, whatever you're taking, whatever regimen you're doing, it's working. And you are on a path to a healthier, more vibrant life with every breath, every healing, perfect breath. Takes in healing, breathes out toxins. So let's have a HugNation hug. Grab yourself by the shoulders. Give thanks for this body in whatever state it's in. Oh, what an amazing machine. So beyond understanding. Even as we can map how it works, it's still so beyond comprehension. And at every moment, there is a universe of conflict going on as microscopic things are fighting against white blood cells and trying to get you sick, and you're trying to stay well, and those little microbes are evolving and your system is figuring it out, and you're in this stasis, sometimes sicker, sometimes more vibrant, just like our planet, just like everything. How fractally delicious. Let's take 3 breaths. Inhale all the healing oxygen and exhaling all the toxic stuff inside us. In through the nose. Last one. On behalf of Grandpa Caleb and all the love warriors, happy HugNation. Thank you. I love you. And I have unconditional compassion for you. An absolute appreciation for who you are. Thank you. I love you. Namaste.